was the game. It was being able to get away with it. The stalking. To be able to do it was like the perfect murder every time.
Picture this, a city gripped by fear, its streets echoing with the whispers of monstrous presence lurking in the shadows. For years, the hunt for the elusive torso killer felt like a plot straight from a gritty crime thriller, with investigators chasing ghosts and the public living in perpetual dread. But in a jaw-dropping twist that even the best screenwriters couldn't have concocted, the mystery has finally been unraveled, and the man behind the madness is none other than Richard Cottingham. Imagine a story where the truth is stranger than fiction, where forensic breakthroughs and relentless detective work have pulled back the curtain on decades-old enigma. Grab a seat and a snack, because we're about to embark on a roller coaster ride through the dark and twisted world of the Torso Killer, and the shocking revelations that have finally brought this sinister saga to a close. On December 2nd, 1979, firefighters were called to the Travel-In Hotel near Times Square in New York City with reports of a room being on fire. When they arrived, they discovered 2 bodies had been set on fire and their hands and heads had been removed and were never recovered. After the fire had been put out, authorities found some of the women's clothes neatly folded in the bathtub. They used these clothes to put them on mannequins from a nearby department store so they could hopefully use them to identify the woman from the fire. They would eventually identify one of the victims as 22-year-old Didi Gudazi. The other victim, believed to be around the age of 16, had never been identified. The killer would be given the moniker, the Torso Killer. On May 15, 1980, the body of 25-year-old Jean Rayner was found in New York's Seville Hotel. Her breasts were removed and put on the headboard, and the mattress was set on fire. Jean was working as a sex worker at the time to pay for a lengthy child custody battle with her ex-husband. On May 22, 1980, police were called to a Quality Inn motel in Hasbrook Heights after the housekeeper reported hearing screams coming from room 117. When the first responders arrived, they apprehended and arrested a man fleeing the motel. He was carrying a fake gun, a switchblade in his pocket, and a bag that had several pairs of handcuffs, prescription pills, a ball gag, and other bondage items. When they got to the room, they found a young woman handcuffed around her ankles, bitten, bruised, and bleeding. The man was identified as 33-year-old Richard Cottingham. He was charged with kidnapping, attempted murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, aggravated sexual assault while armed, possession of a weapon, and possession of a controlled substance. He had $350,000 bail set, and he never made bail. The woman, Leslie Ann Odell, was an 18-year-old runaway who had just started working as a sex worker in Manhattan a few days before Cottingham had picked her up and taken her to New Jersey. She was tortured and sexually assaulted, and she had started screaming when she thought her life was about to end. She would later testify that he said, "You have to take it. The other girls did. You have to take it too. You're a whore, and you have to be punished." After his arrest, detectives went to his home he rented in Lodi, New Jersey, which he shared with his wife and 3 children. There, they found a room he kept locked from his family. In this room was jewelry and clothing from several women. Other items would also be found inside his car. Authorities started looking at Cottingham for other crimes. Richard Cottingham was born November 25, 1946, in the Bronx, New York. His family later moved to New Jersey. He graduated high school from Pascack Valley High School in Hillsdale, New Jersey. After graduation, he worked at Metropolitan Life, a medical insurance company. He started in the mailroom, but after taking some computer courses, he became a computer operator. In 1966, he became a computer operator for the Blue Cross Blue Shield Association. He was still working there when he was arrested in 1980. He lived with his parents until they moved away, and then he got married. He was known to be seen often helping his mother around the house. On May 3, 1970, he married his wife Janet, and the couple had 3 children together. In 1978, his wife filed for divorce. In the divorce records, his wife alleged that he had started leaving the family without necessary funds for essentials, that he would be home in the early hours of the morning, and he was known to frequent a swingers club in New York called Pluto's Retreat. She removed the partition for divorce when he was arrested in 1980, but they did get divorced after his conviction in 1981. During the investigation, they were able to tie Cottingham to the murder that had occurred at the same motel earlier that same month, on May 5th, 1980, only 17 days before his arrest. The victim, Valerie Street, was a 19-year-old sex worker who was found under the bed by her housekeeping in one of the motel rooms, naked, with her hands handcuffed behind her back. Valerie was strangled to death. They found the fingerprint on the handcuff, and it was a match to Cottingham. This would start authorities down the path of discovering a serial killer. In the next few months, other authorities, as well as New Jersey police, would tie Cottingham to additional horrific crimes. In the months following his arrest, he would be tied to another murder that occurred at the Quality Inn Motel in Hasbrouck Heights. On December 15th, 1977, 26-year-old Marianne Carr, an X-ray technician who had celebrated her first wedding anniversary a few months earlier, was found by a fence in the parking lot outside the motel. She was found with a ligature still around her neck, with evidence that she had been restrained with what might have been handcuffs and had tape residue around her mouth. She had small cuts and bite marks all over her body. She had last been seen at her apartment in Little Ferry, New Jersey, an apartment complex that Cottingham had lived in a few years earlier with his wife. Her apartment keys were found in a lockbox of victim trophies found in Cottingham's home. In New York, he would be charged with the murder of 3 sex workers at 2 different crime scenes. This is where law enforcement believed the extent of his crimes stopped. However, it would be decades before the true scope of his crimes would be discovered. On June 12, 1981, Cottingham was convicted in New Jersey for the murder of Valerie Street. In that court case, he was charged with the kidnapping and sexual assault of 4 other women, and all had survived various attacks. They even testified at trial. This includes the attack on Leslie Ann Odell on October 12, 1982. He was convicted of the murder of Marianne Carr. He would ultimately be convicted of the murder of 3 victims, but acquitted of 1 case. For a time before DNA evidence, Cottingham seemed very thorough in cleaning his crime scenes, leaving little to no evidence of himself. However, it was the trophies that would connect him to the additional victims, even before DNA. In 1984, New York authorities extradited him for a trial where he was convicted on July 9, 1984, for the murders of Didi Gudazi, the unknown victim, and Jean Rayner. He would serve his nearly 200-year sentence in a New Jersey state prison. Over the next 3 decades, detectives would visit Cottingham, asking him about unsolved cases and always leaving out critical details from the crimes. In 2010, it would finally pay off.
What year is the first, do you think? Do you have it in your head, or you have no idea?
I can knock it down to 1 or 2 years.
What do you think? How far back?
67. 60, maybe the end of 66. 67.
It's a lot of years of running around.
Out of state still.
Yeah. Do you have a number in your head that you think? Did you ever sit back and think about it?
It's sad to say I couldn't count that high. They start to get jumbled. I would say there's well over 80.
You think that many?
Well over. I've done some in Florida, Connecticut, a lot in New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Baltimore. Any place within driving distance that was not connected to me, I would try. My whole thing was not to make a pattern, which I never did. And never to try to kill them the exact same way, or to, leave a signature. I wasn't stupid, That was the thing with me. I wasn't a serial killer. No,
You just told me you think you killed over 80. That fits the definition pretty well.
no, it doesn't.
But I know what you said, because you've told me in the past. There's been many more that you let go.
Hundreds.
Yeah.
In other words, I didn't go out to kill somebody. Most anyone I killed was when I would be somehow connected to them, and I didn't want to get caught. It was more than just not getting caught. I was just thinking about myself.
What do you mean connected? Meaning like somebody might have seen her get in the
like
car, or...
Yeah, like in the Bergen Mall. I walked around the mall. I walked in the parking lot, followed her into the parking lot. Anybody could have sit in the car. To me, in my mind, I don't know if anybody's seen me. Like I tell you, one time in Atlantic City, I met a girl in resorts. She went with me, and I brought her back up here. In my mind, hey, I could be on a camera down there or whatever. So those were the ones I couldn't leave. But if the girl wasn't dangerous to me, I never went out to kill. That's why I said I'm not really like a standard serial killer. I didn't get no enjoyment out of someone. And that's the truth. Never had no enjoyment. It was very hard.
So what was the thrill? Was it more rape? Control? Tying up?
The game. It was being able to get away with it. The stalking. To be able to do it was like the perfect murder every time.
One of the detectives was Detective Robert Anzalotti, who interviewed Cottingham over and over for 15 years. He would eventually get confessions that would lead to the closing of several cold cases. Cottingham had never seemed to know the names of his victims, but remembered details of the crimes. In August 2010, Cottingham confessed and was convicted of the murder of Nancy Vogel. In his confessions, he gave details only the murderer would know. Nancy Vogel, 29 years old, was killed on October 28, 1967. She was found in her car, naked with her hands tied in front of her, with her clothes neatly folded underneath her. She had been beaten, strangled, and sexually assaulted. Her husband had reported her missing after she did not come home. She had told her husband she was going to play bingo at the church in Little Ferry, New Jersey. Nancy is believed to be Cottingham's first known victim. He was only 20 when he took her life, and he was still living with his parents at the time. In 2014, Cottingham confessed to Anzalotti 2 more murders he'd committed, again giving details only the killer would know. First was 18-year-old Irene Blaze, who was found strangled in April 1969 in the Saddle River in Hackensack, New Jersey. Irene had vanished from her home. The second was 15-year-old Denise Falaska, who was abducted in July 1969 and never came home. She was snatched while walking to a friend's house in Emerson, New Jersey. She was found strangled on the side of the road near a cemetery in Saddlebrook, New Jersey. In 2017, he confessed to killing 13-year-old Jacqueline Harp in July 1968 while she was walking home at night after a band practice in Midland Park, New Jersey. She was strangled with her bag. Though these were official confessions, they were never taken to trial, and Cottingham was not convicted of these murders. The families had agreed he was already living a life in prison, and it was unnecessary now that they had answers. The facts of this, however, did not come out until 2020, when the cases were officially closed. In 2017, Cottingham would get another visitor, Jennifer Weiss, the daughter of Didi Gaddafi. She had been given up for adoption and had gone looking for her mother, only to find out in 2002 that her mother had been killed in such a horrific way. She had decided to start writing to Cottingham.
Everybody deserves to be forgiven for things in life. The magnitude of what he did is unfathomable, but I became friends with Richard for my mother's sake and for my quest. I desperately wanted to find Dita's skull, and that is the driving force behind what I'm doing. Whether or not he's telling the truth or not, we are getting bits and pieces of the truth. I'm doing this for the mothers who lost their daughters and my own mother. I asked many questions growing up because My adopted family told me that I was adopted when I was around 4. So something inside me wanted to know where I came from. And I didn't find that out until I was 24. I decided that year I was going to give myself a birthday gift of finding out my birth mother. So I looked on the computer and I found the Children's Home Society of New Jersey, and I went and they pushed the newspaper articles in front of me and they said, "We're really sorry, but your mother was killed by a serial killer." He was sitting there waiting in the window visit with a sheet of glass in between us, and although the image of him was a little frightening, I wasn't scared because he was behind a sheet of glass. But also I was more concerned with finding out about my mom, and that was the driving force, and I usually forget about everything else when it comes to finding out about. Would I be friends with him if he was not incarcerated? I doubt that. If he was an active serial killer, I doubt I'd be friends with him. But because I'm trying to find information for the public, and I'm trying to find my mother's skull, and all these things are so sensitive.
She would start trying to be his friend, and she wanted information about her mother and where he had put her head. She figured the best way was to befriend him and earn his trust. And in 2017, she met him face to face after writing to him for years. Weiss said she asked him how he knew her mother in that first meeting. He then finally admitted to knowing Dee Dee. She has continued to visit him. Weiss has talked at length about trying to convince Cottingham to confess before it's too late. In March 2021, Anzalotti informed Cottingham he was retiring and wanted him to give information on one last case before he did. This went back and forth, but on April 14th, 2021, in a recorded interview, Cottingham went into detail about the murder of 2 young women. He even remembered their names. When asked why he remembered their names, he said, "Because I was with them for a couple of days," he replied according to a transcript, "and I got to know them." Lorraine Kelly was 16 and Mary Ann Pryor was 17. Cottingham abducted them from Montevideo, New Jersey, while they were on their way to the mall. He drove them to a motel and held them there for 2 days, sexually assaulting them before he drowned them in the bathtub. He gave detailed accounts of what he did to the girls and exact locations of where the bodies were left in the woods. On April 27, 2021, he confessed to a judge and was convicted of the murders. In August of 2022, New York officials accepted and corroborated a confession that he had beaten and killed 26-year-old Lorraine McGaw on March 1, 1970. In June 2022, DNA evidence entered by Nassau County Police on a 54-year-old cold case got a hit for Cottingham. His DNA was entered into the database during his 2010 conviction. The cold case is Diane Krusik, a 23-year-old who was killed on February 15, 1968. She was a dance teacher who had just finished a class and was going to a Long Island mall to buy new dance shoes. She was found in a car, strangled. This was the only case so far that had been tied to Cottingham through DNA evidence. When the Nassau County Police interviewed Cottingham about the other cold cases in the area, after a thorough comparison of the facts and evidence to his confessions, they were able to connect him with 4 other cold cases. The shocking revelation now put his victim count to 13 known victims and 1 unknown victim. The cold cases from Nassau County were the following. Mary Beth Hines, 21, was found in a creek in Long Island on the 20th of May 1972. She had been strangled. Laverne Moyer, 23, mother of 2. She was found in the same creek, strangled, on July 20th, 1972. Sheila Hyman, 33-year-old mother of 3, was found by her husband in their Long Island home, July 20th, 1973. Her death was from blunt force trauma. Her children were at summer camp. For years, her husband was the prime suspect.
Good afternoon. I'm Randy Child, Sheila Hyman's daughter, and I'm speaking on behalf of my 2 older brothers, Todd Hyman and Bruce Hyman. We stand here today in honor of our beautiful mother, who was brutally taken from us on July 20th, 1973. At 33 years old, she had her whole life ahead of her. At the time of her murder, my brother Todd was 13, Bruce 10, and I was 8. Her loss was devastating to our entire family, And over the last 49 years, not a day has gone by that we haven't thought about her and missed her terribly. She was a wonderful mother, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. She was the type of person that everyone wanted to be around. She was kind, generous, fun-loving, and she had a wonderful sense of humor. It breaks our hearts that she was so cruelly deprived of many of life's joys, especially the opportunity to raise her children and meet and fawn over her grandchildren. Nevertheless, in the brief time that she was with us, she made a powerful impact and taught us, by example, to be kind, compassionate, and resilient. I know that she would be extremely proud of us all today. We would also like to honor our father. I'm just going to hold up a photo of my parents. Lee Hyman, who sadly passed away in 2004 without having the closure that we have been given today. He was a kind, and generous man who loved our mother deeply and who spent too many years living in the shadow of his wife's murder. I was not going to speak about that today, but since it was addressed, I just want to say that my father, anyone who knew him, his family and his dear friends, knew that he was never capable of doing any such thing. And there was really no reason why he should have been suspected. And my poor dad lived with that until the day he died.
Lastly, Maria Neves, 18, was killed December 27th, 1973. She was found with her hands tied behind her back and wrapped in plastic. On December 5th, 2022, from his prison hospital bed, Richard Cottingham was convicted of the murder of Diane Krusick, and he had made a non-prosecution agreement for the other 4 murders. He was sentenced to an additional 25 years, running consecutively with the 179 years he is currently serving for his past crimes. Richard Cottingham, now 76 years old, known as the Torso Killer, has been behind bars since his 1980 arrest. He has been convicted or officially confessed to the murder of 17 women and girls, and very likely he still has more victims out there. He has, in past interviews, stated he has killed between 85 to 100 women. He will die in prison for his horrific crimes that spanned 13 years. As we wrap up this astonishing chapter, it is essential to remember the victims and their families, who have carried the weight of this unsolved mystery for far too long. Closure may never fully heal their wounds, but it's a step towards justice that they rightly deserve. In a world that is often unpredictable and full of shadows, it is comforting to know that eventually, even the most elusive criminals can be brought to light. This tale reminds us that no matter how dark the mystery, there are dedicated individuals and advances in forensic science that can shine a beacon of truth into the darkest corners of our world. So stay curious, keep an eye on the headlines, and remember, sometimes even the most chilling mysteries can have an ending that leaves us in awe. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the chilling case of the Torso Killer and the startling discovery of Richard Cottingham as the man behind the terror. If you've got any other mind-bending mysteries you'd like us to explore, drop them in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss a twisted tale right here on Mystery and Motive. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep your eyes peeled for the next mystery to solve.